Hi everyone, today's video is about colic, a very common problem and what I'm asked about frequently. So the definition of colic varies. Many people just mean it that the baby's gassy, that they're fussy, that they're crying a lot. So we want to talk about that. A lot of us believe colic is really a level above the normal amount of infant crying. And I just want to reassure you today that all infants cry, especially from the period of about 2 to 3 weeks to 3 to 4 months. In fact, it's called the period of purple crying, not meaning that your baby cries until it's purple, but the purple is an acronym. So I want to explain that to you. This is a normal developmental phase. So babies within this normal range, we're not even worried about, particularly if you're keeping your routine well checks and the weight gain is excellent and staying on the growth curves and the physical exam is normal. It is just one of those times, unfortunately, we all have to survive if you have a really irritable, cranky, fussy baby. So some people just loosely use the word colic to mean that, and some of us mean by colic that it's even worse than that normal developmental phase of the period of purple crying. So let me teach you what that acronym stands for. The P stands for, the first P, there is a peak of crying per day. So typically it starts around 2 to 3 weeks, and with each week there's increased hours per day spent crying. So for example, some babies may peak around 6 weeks, and then gradually the amount of time per day spent crying decreases till they're finally over it, usually by 3 months. The U stands for unexpected. You can't predict when your baby's gonna cry. It can come and go. It's unpredictable. The R stands for resists soothing, and I think this can be the most frustrating thing. There are all sorts of techniques you can use to soothe your baby when it's colicky or cranky or fussy or gassy, but many times with the period of purple crying, during those bouts, it just resists soothing. And then the second P is for pain. When babies cry, even from this normal developmental phase of the period of purple crying, it looks like the same facial expression as when they're in pain, even though this developmental phase doesn't cause pain. It's not a pain response. The facial expression looks the same. L is for long lasting. At that peak of crying hours per day, it may be as much as 5 hours per day your baby spends crying. And that's tough. That's a lot of crying. And then the E stands for, it's often in the evening. So this can be frustrating as well when you feel like you finally survived the day or you finally got home from work and the infant is just incredibly fussy during those time periods. So let me tell you, you can get even more information about the period of purple crying at a website, purplecrying.info. And I really endorse that website. I think it's great. I've been looking at it, and I would really recommend that you guys go see it if you're struggling with colic or excessive fussiness and crying. So let's talk about some of those calming techniques. And every baby varies. With ours, our first was the most colicky baby. The others weren't, thank the good Lord. But with the first, we would try a warm bath. Once the umbilical cord's off, you can try a warm baby bathtub bath and see if that soothes them. You can bicycle their legs to see if that helps them pass gas and feel better. You can massage their belly. You can swaddle firmly. You can provide a lot of motion. You can walk and pat and sway and rock and jiggle and do everything you can. A lot of times motion seems to soothe them, like the vibration setting on the bouncy seat or in a swing when you're watching them. All those things are fun, but they just don't always work because, as we said, often they resist soothing. It is so important that you know it's terrible for a baby to ever be shaken in that forward and backwards motion that can cause irreparable brain damage, even retinal hemorrhages and blindness for the rest of their lives. It's called shaken baby syndrome, and that's part of why this educational effort's been put into the period of purple crying, so parents understand that this is a normal and typical development phase that will pass and that the baby will outgrow, and you will all survive as a family, thank goodness. Then I want to tell you a couple of quick things to look for that could mean it's something even more than that. Certainly if your baby has very mucousy with blood-tinged stools, that can mean that the lining of their gut is inflamed, something called cow's milk protein sensitivity, not a true allergy, but an irritation or inflammation along the lining of the gut. If that happens, let us know. And if that were the case, if you're breastfeeding, you would need to go to a dairy-free diet, or if the baby's formula fed, we would need to switch the baby to an elemental formula. The other thing to consider is reflux. All babies have reflux. Please see that other video called Spit Happens. But if your baby seems to have excessive pain associated with their reflux, then certainly talk to us, and there's some techniques and even medicines that we may want to try. So colic is hard to get through, but it is normal if you're calling this period of purple crying colic. If you see any of the other red flags, please let us know. But if your baby is growing and has a normal exam and good checkup visits, it's probably just this period of purple crying, and it's time for you to call in your backup and your emotional support and your help and be able to take a break from the baby till you get through this difficult time. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks.